Maxwell Oliver Quinn had exactly 7 hours to find an anniversary gift for his wife, which wouldn't have been a problem if she weren't already on her way back from a month-long business trip to celebrate their 5th wedding anniversary. As the CEO of Quinn Maritime Shipping, one of the largest privately owned shipping companies in the country, Oliver was used to last-minute crises, container ships delayed by storms, dock worker strikes, regulatory changes, but nothing compared to the panic he felt staring at his calendar reminder blinking accusingly on his screen. Elizabeth's flight lands at 7 p.m., anniversary dinner at La Maison. Bring gift. Oliver ran his fingers through his dark hair, leaving it slightly disheveled. He had been so consumed with the company's expansion into Asian markets that he'd completely forgotten to shop for something special. Their anniversary tradition required thoughtful gifts that reflected the traditional material for each year. For their first anniversary, he'd given Elizabeth paper specifically, the deed to the small lighthouse property she'd always loved on the coast. For year 2, cotton a hand-woven tapestry from Peru depicting the harbor where they'd met. Year 3 had been leather a custom-bound collection of letters they'd written during their long-distance courtship. Year 4, linen a hand-stitched tablecloth made by artisans from the Greek island where they'd honeymooned. Year 5 was wood, and he had nothing. "Deanne," he called, pressing the intercom button. His assistant appeared in the doorway almost immediately. "I need your help." "It's my anniversary tonight, and I don't have a gift." "Traditional 5th is wood," Deanne said without missing a beat. "You'll need something special, not just a wooden box from the mall." "Exactly," Oliver said, already reaching for his suit jacket. "I need to find something extraordinary in the next few hours. There's an artisan jeweler downtown Adeline's Designs. The owner works with unusual materials, including wood. I've heard her inlay work is phenomenal." Oliver nodded, already halfway to the door. "Cancel my afternoon. If the Tokyo investors call, tell them I'll phone back first thing tomorrow." "And Mr. Whitney's 4 o'clock?" Deanne asked, scrambling to keep up. "Reschedule. This is more important," he said firmly, pressing the elevator button. 30 minutes later, after battling midday traffic, Oliver pulled his Tesla into a small parking space on a charming downtown street lined with boutiques. The storefront of Adeline's Designs was modest, but elegant large windows displaying handcrafted jewelry on carved wooden stands. Unlike the flashy high-end jewelry chains he was accustomed to, this place had character. A small bell jingled as he pushed open the door. The interior was warm and inviting, with glass display cases atop what looked like reclaimed wood counters. The walls featured framed sketches of jewelry designs, and soft lighting highlighted the craftsmanship of each piece. "I'll be right with you," called a melodic voice from the back room. Oliver browsed the displays, impressed by the unique designs. Many pieces incorporated wood with precious metals and gems in ways he'd never seen before. "Sorry to keep you waiting," the voice said again, closer now. "I was just finishing setting a stone." Oliver looked up to find himself face to face with a woman who could only be described as luminous. She had auburn hair pulled back in a loose bun, with escaped tendrils framing her face. Her eyes were a clear hazel that seemed to shift between green and gold in the shop's warm lighting. She wore a simple linen apron over a fitted blouse and jeans, and her hands bore the slight calluses of someone who worked with their hands. "I'm Adeline Davis," she said with a smile, extending her hand. "Welcome to my shop." Oliver took her hand, noticing the strength in her grip. "Oliver Quinn. I'm in desperate need of help." "Most people who come in looking that panicked usually are," she said with a laugh that immediately put him at ease. "Anniversary?" He blinked in surprise. "How did you know?" "You're well dressed in business attire, checking your watch every 30 seconds and looking at my wooden inlay pieces with particular interest. 5th anniversary is wood," she said simply. "When is it?" "Tonight," he admitted. "I've been distracted." Instead of the judgment he expected, her eyes sparkled with the challenge. "Nothing like a deadline to focus the mind. Tell me about your wife." "Elizabeth is." He paused, realizing how rarely he was asked to describe his wife to strangers. She's brilliant. She works in international finance. She's elegant but practical, classic style. She loves the water sailing specifically. Adeline nodded, walking slowly around her displays. Does she wear much jewelry? Yes, but she's particular, nothing too ostentatious. She prefers pieces with meaning. I think I have just the thing, Adeline said, opening a drawer behind the counter. I finished this commission last week, but the client changed her mind about the design. It's a one-of-a-kind piece I created using koa wood from Hawaii and white gold. She placed a wooden box on the counter and opened it. Inside was a pendant, a delicate ship's wheel made from polished golden red wood, inlaid with white gold and tiny diamonds where the spokes met the rim. Oliver picked it up carefully. It was exquisite, substantial enough to feel significant but elegant in its simplicity. This is perfect, he said, genuine relief washing over him. Elizabeth will love this. The chain is adjustable, Adeline explained, demonstrating. And the koa wood has been stabilized with a special resin, so it's completely waterproof. How much? Oliver asked, already reaching for his wallet. It's $5,200, she said without apology. The materials and craftsmanship, I'll take it, he interrupted. It's exactly what I was looking for. Relief swept across her features. Wonderful, I can package it specially for you. As Adeline carefully wrapped the pendant, Oliver found himself curious about her. Most jewelers he'd encountered were either salespeople or older craftsmen. She was neither. How long have you owned this shop? He asked. 3 years on my own, she replied, her fingers deftly tying a ribbon around the box. I apprenticed with a master jeweler for 7 years before that. Your work is extraordinary, he said sincerely. I've never seen anything like it. A faint blush colored her cheeks. Thank you. I try to create pieces that tell a story. Their conversation was interrupted by Oliver's phone. Excuse me, he said, checking the screen. It's my assistant. The call was brief but concerning. The Tokyo investors had moved up their timeline and wanted to meet tomorrow instead of next week. It was a critical deal that could open an entirely new market for Quinn Maritime. Problem? Adeline asked, noting his expression. Just business, he said dismissively, tucking his phone away. Nothing that can't wait until tomorrow. She handed him the beautifully wrapped package. Your anniversary present, I hope she loves it. Thanks to you, I think she will, Oliver said, genuinely grateful. He handed over his credit card, and as their fingers briefly touched, he felt an unexpected spark of something. He quickly attributed it to relief at finding the perfect gift. Thank you for your business, Mr. Quinn, Adeline said professionally as she handed him the receipt. Oliver, please, and thank you for saving me from what would have certainly been an awkward anniversary dinner. Her smile reached her eyes, creating tiny crinkles at the corners. That's what I'm here for, rescuing forgetful husbands one anniversary at a time. As Oliver drove back to his office, he felt surprisingly light. The pendant was perfect, and Elizabeth would be pleased. He'd managed to avert a personal crisis and could now focus on preparing for the unexpected investor call. Yet his mind kept drifting back to the jeweler with the skilled hands and warm laugh. That evening at La Maison, Elizabeth's reaction to the pendant was everything Oliver had hoped for. Her blue eyes widened in delight as she opened the box, and she immediately asked him to fasten it around her neck. It's beautiful, Ollie, she said, using his childhood nickname that only she was allowed to use. Where did you find something so unique? A small jewelry shop downtown, he explained, flagging down the waiter for more champagne. The owner makes everything herself. Elizabeth touched the pendant gently. It's exquisite workmanship. You must have been planning this for months. Oliver hesitated, then decided on honesty. Actually, I found it today. I've been so caught up in the Pacific expansion that I nearly forgot our anniversary. Instead of the disappointment he expected, Elizabeth laughed. I knew it. You had that panicked look when I got home. Remember our first anniversary when you rushed out at the last minute and bought me that hideous crystal vase? It wasn't hideous, he protested. It was avant-garde. It was terrible, she said affectionately. But this is perfect. You're getting better at last-minute shopping. They finished dinner, reminiscing about their 5 years together. By all measures, it was a successful anniversary celebration, yet Oliver found himself strangely distracted, his thoughts occasionally drifting to hazel eyes and skilled hands. The next morning, the Tokyo investors' call went exceptionally well. They were impressed with Quinn Maritime's presentation and eager to move forward with the partnership. As Oliver hung up, feeling the rush of a business victory, Deanne appeared with his schedule for the day. "The investors are sending their legal team next week," she reported. And Mrs. Quinn called. "She's leaving for London this afternoon for that banking summit. She said to tell you she loved her gift and she'll call you when she lands." Oliver nodded, unsurprised. Elizabeth's work often took her abroad for weeks at a time. Their marriage had always accommodated their ambitious careers, a balance they'd struck early on. "Also," Deanne continued, "the jeweler you visited yesterday called. She found your business card in her shop and wanted to let you know your wife left her gloves there." Oliver frowned. "Elizabeth hasn't been to the shop. The jeweler Adeline said someone matching your wife's description came in this morning to have the pendant's chain shortened. She left her gloves on the counter." "That's not possible," Oliver said. "Elizabeth left directly for the airport from her office." "Should I call the jeweler back and clarify?" Oliver checked his watch. "No, I have a gap before the board meeting. I'll stop by there myself." An hour later, Oliver was pushing open the door to Adeline's shop, the familiar bell jingling. The jeweler looked up from her workbench, surprise evident on her face. "Mr. Quinn Oliver," she corrected herself. "I wasn't expecting you." "My assistant said you called about gloves," he said, watching her carefully. Adeline's brow furrowed in confusion. "I didn't call anyone at your office." "You didn't find gloves or call about my wife visiting?" "No," she said slowly. "I haven't seen your wife, and I certainly didn't call your office." She set down her tools and stood. "Is something wrong?" Oliver felt a mixture of confusion and something else, a strange relief that there hadn't been a mix-up involving Elizabeth. "Someone called my office claiming to be you. They said my wife had been in and left her gloves." Adeline's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "That's odd. Did they ask for anything? Money or information?" "No," Oliver said, realizing how strange it was. "Just said the gloves were here." "Sounds like someone was trying to get you to come back to the shop," Adeline said thoughtfully. "Do you have any overzealous business competitors, or perhaps someone at your office playing a prank?" Oliver considered this. The shipping industry was competitive, but corporate espionage involving jewelry shops seemed far-fetched, and his employees respected him too much to pull such an unprofessional prank. "I don't think so," he said finally. "It's probably just a miscommunication." "Well, while you're here," Adeline said, her professional demeanor returning, "I should thank you properly. Your wife's pendant was a special piece for me. I'm glad it found the right home." "It was perfect," Oliver agreed. Elizabeth loved it. An awkward silence fell between them. Oliver knew he should leave. He had no legitimate reason to stay, but he found himself reluctant to go. "You have time for coffee?" he asked suddenly. "To thank you properly for helping me yesterday. I was in quite a panic." Adeline hesitated, her eyes searching his. "I don't normally leave the shop during business hours." "Of course," Oliver said quickly. "It was just a thought." But she continued with a small smile, "I suppose I could put up the back in 30 minutes sign. There's a cafe next door that makes excellent cappuccinos." 15 minutes later, they were seated at a small table by the cafe window, each with a steaming cup in front of them. Oliver found himself telling Adeline about Quinn Maritime's history, how his grandfather had started with a single fishing boat and gradually built a coastal shipping business, how his father had expanded to international waters, and how Oliver had modernized the fleet and operations. "It sounds like quite a legacy," Adeline said, genuinely interested. "Do you enjoy it?" The question caught Oliver off guard. Most people asked about the company's revenue or his expansion plans. "I do," he said after a moment's reflection. "Though sometimes I miss the simplicity of being on the water. I started working on the ships when I was 16. There's something honest about the sea." "That's how I feel about creating jewelry," Adeline said. "It's why I left a corporate design position to apprentice with an old-school jeweler." I wanted to work with my hands to create something tangible. You left a corporate job, Oliver asked, intrigued. I was a product designer for a luxury goods conglomerate, she explained. Good salary, great benefits, soul-crushing work. I designed things that would be mass-produced in factories, never touching the materials myself. That took courage, Oliver said, admiring her conviction. Walking away from security, she shrugged. It felt more like self-preservation than courage. I couldn't see myself doing that for 40 years. Their conversation flowed easily, touching on their shared appreciation for craftsmanship, their favorite coastal spots, and even their parallel experiences growing up as only children. Oliver was surprised by how quickly 30 minutes passed. I should get back, Adeline said regretfully, checking her watch. I have a client coming in at noon. As they walked back to her shop, Oliver found himself wishing their coffee had lasted longer. There was something refreshing about talking with someone who knew nothing about his business reputation or family name. Thank you for the coffee, Adeline said as they reached her door, and for understanding about the strange phone call mix-up. Thank you for the pendant, he replied. And the conversation. As Oliver drove back to his office, he told himself that his unusual interest in the jeweler was nothing more than appreciation for her talent and the rescue she'd provided. Yet when he found himself driving past her shop the following week, he knew he was lying to himself. Elizabeth had been in London for 9 days with another week to go. Oliver had thrown himself into work as he always did during her absences. But today, he'd found himself taking a detour through downtown, slowing as he passed Adeline's shop. He didn't stop. That would be inappropriate. He was a married man, and regardless of how engaging he found Adeline's conversation, he respected his vows. 3 days later, however, he did stop with a legitimate reason. His mother's 70th birthday was approaching, and she had always appreciated fine jewelry. The bell jingled as he entered, and Adeline looked up from helping another customer. Her face registered surprise, quickly masked by professional courtesy. "Mr. Quinn," she said, "I'll be with you in a moment." Oliver browsed while she finished with the other client, a young man clearly buying an engagement ring. When they were alone, Adeline approached him with a cautious smile. "Back so soon. Did your wife have issues with the pendant?" "No, it's perfect," he assured her. "I'm actually here for my mother's birthday. I thought she might appreciate something handcrafted." If Adeline doubted his motives, she didn't show it. Instead, she led him to a display of elegant brooches and earrings suitable for an older woman. Does she prefer gold or silver? Statement pieces or something more subtle? They spent nearly an hour discussing options, with Oliver sharing stories about his mother's classic style and Adeline suggesting pieces that might suit her. Eventually, he selected a pair of earrings featuring small carved coral roses set in gold. "An excellent choice," Adeline approved. "They're feminine without being fussy." As she wrapped the purchase, Oliver found himself asking, "Would you have dinner with me tonight to discuss a potential custom piece for my mother's Christmas gift?" The moment the words left his mouth, he regretted them. The invitation sounded like the transparent excuse it was. Adeline's hands stilled on the wrapping paper. "Oliver," she said gently, "I don't think that would be appropriate. You're married." The simple statement hit him like a bucket of cold water. "I didn't mean," he began, then stopped. What hadn't he meant? "You're right, I apologize." "No need to apologize," she said, her tone professional but kind. "I'm flattered, but I make it a policy not to date clients. Especially married ones." Oliver paid for the earrings in awkward silence, mentally berating himself for the impulse. What had he been thinking? He wasn't the type of man who cheated, who risked his marriage for a momentary attraction. "Thank you," he said stiffly, taking the package. "My mother will love these." "Oliver," Adeline said as he turned to leave. "For what it's worth, I've enjoyed our conversations too." He nodded once, not trusting himself to speak, and left. For the next 3 weeks, Oliver deliberately avoided downtown. He threw himself into work, staying late at the office and taking weekend calls. When Elizabeth returned from London, he was the perfect husband, attentive, engaged, present. They settled back into their comfortable routine, parallel lives that intersected for dinners, social events, and occasional weekends at their beach house. Then Elizabeth received news that would change everything. She was being offered a promotion heading the bank's Asian division, based in Hong Kong. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, one she'd been working toward for years. "I'd be gone for at least 2 years," she told Oliver over dinner in their penthouse. "Maybe 3. Oliver absorbed this, turning the stem of his wine glass between his fingers. "That's a significant commitment." "It is," she agreed, watching him carefully, "and it would mean some hard decisions for us." In the discussion that followed, Oliver was surprised by his own clarity. He couldn't leave Quinn Maritime, not with the Pacific expansion underway, and his father recently retired. Elizabeth couldn't turn down this career-defining opportunity, and neither of them wanted a long-distance marriage for years on end. "Maybe this is telling us something," Elizabeth said finally, her voice soft. "We've been good companions, Ollie, but I think we both know we've been living separate lives for years now." Oliver didn't argue. In the quiet that followed her statement, he felt not despair but a strange sense of honesty breaking through. "I care for you deeply," he said. "I always will, and I care for you," she replied. "But I think we married the people we thought we should be, not the people we are." That night, as they lay in separate sides of their king bed, Oliver realized Elizabeth was right. They had married because it made sense, both from prominent families, both ambitious, both attracted to each other's drive and intelligence. But passion, the kind of love that made your heart race when they walked into a room, that had been missing for years, if it had ever truly existed. The divorce proceedings were amicable and discreet. Elizabeth took the Hong Kong position, and Oliver remained focused on Quinn Maritime. Their social circle was surprised but supportive, especially when they saw how civil the split remained. 6 months after signing the final papers, Oliver found himself driving downtown on a Saturday afternoon. He hadn't planned to visit Adeline's shop, hadn't allowed himself to think of her during the divorce, determined not to make her a factor in his decision. But now, with Elizabeth settled in Hong Kong and the divorce finalized, he found himself parking outside the familiar storefront. The bell jingled as he entered. Adeline was helping an elderly couple, showing them what looked like an anniversary band. She glanced up at the sound, and for a moment, their eyes met. She gave a small, professional nod before returning her attention to her customers. Oliver browsed patiently, noting new pieces that hadn't been there during his last visit. 20 minutes later, the couple left with their purchase, and he and Adeline were alone in the shop. "Oliver," she said, her tone carefully neutral, "it's been a while." "Almost 9 months," he confirmed. "How is your wife? Did she like the pendant?" "She did," he said, "but we're no longer married." Adeline's expression shifted subtly. "I'm sorry to hear that." "I'm not," Oliver said honestly. "It was mutual and amicable. Elizabeth took a position in Hong Kong, and we both realized we wanted different lives." Adeline nodded, absorbing this information. "What brings you to my shop today? Another gift." "Actually," Oliver said, his heart hammering in a way it hadn't in years, "I was wondering if you might have dinner with me, not to discuss jewelry, just dinner." A small smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Just dinner, to start with," he said. "I'd like to get to know you better, Adeline, properly this time." She studied him for a long moment. "I close at 6, she said finally. "There's a new Mediterranean place 2 blocks over that I've been wanting to try." That first dinner led to a second, and then to weekend hikes along the coast, to gallery openings and quiet mornings in cafes. Oliver discovered that Adeline's passion for her craft extended to all aspects of her life. She lived fully, authentically, with an appreciation for craftsmanship and beauty that resonated deeply with him. For her part, Adeline came to understand the weight of responsibility Oliver carried as the 3rd-generation leader of his family's company. She admired his dedication to maintaining the human element in an increasingly automated industry, his insistence on fair treatment of workers at every level. 6 months into their relationship, Oliver took Adeline sailing on his grandfather's restored wooden sloop. As they anchored in a quiet cove for lunch, he found himself studying her the way the sun caught the auburn highlights in her hair, how her hands moved with precision even in the simple act of uncorking wine. "What?" she asked, noticing his gaze. "I was just thinking about how unexpected this all is," he said honestly. "A year ago, I walked into your shop in a panic, looking for an anniversary gift, and you found it," she reminded him with a teasing smile. "I found something far more valuable," he corrected her, taking her hand. "I found someone who reminds me daily of what really matters, creating something meaningful, living with purpose." Adeline squeezed his hand. "You're getting sentimental on me, Quinn." "Maybe," he conceded, "but it's true. You've changed my life, Adeline." "You've changed mine too," she admitted. "I never thought I'd be dating a shipping magnate, CEO," he corrected with mock seriousness. "Shipping magnate sounds like I should have a monocle and a pocket watch," she laughed, the sound carrying across the water. "Fine, CEO. Though I've always been more impressed by your kindness than your title." A year to the day after Oliver first entered Adeline's shop, he returned with a small wooden box in his pocket. The bell jingled, but this time there were no other customers. Adeline had closed early at his request, thinking they were headed to dinner to celebrate their anniversary. She looked up from her workbench, her smile warm and familiar. "Ready for dinner. I just need to lock up." "Actually," Oliver said, approaching her workbench, "I was hoping we could talk here first." Something in his tone made her set down her tools. "Is everything okay?" "Everything is perfect," he assured her, taking her hands in his. "Adeline, this past year has been the most authentic, joyful time of my life. You've shown me what it means to live with passion and purpose, to create something beautiful with your hands and your heart." Her eyes widened as he reached into his pocket and withdrew the wooden box. "I had this made by a woodworker in Maine," he explained, opening it to reveal a ring. "The band is crafted from the same koa wood as the pendant you sold me a year ago, but the stone," he paused, lifting the ring from its cushion, "I wanted something that reminded me of your eyes." The ring featured a stunning green gold sapphire, set in a simple platinum setting atop the wooden band. "Oliver," Adeline whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "I came looking for an anniversary gift," he said softly, "and found the most precious gem of all. You. Will you marry me, Adeline?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Oliver marveled at how perfectly it fit, just as Adeline had fit into his life, unexpected and transformative. 2 years later, Oliver and Adeline welcomed their daughter, Emma, into the world. Their home, a renovated boathouse overlooking the harbor, became the heart of their lives. Oliver continued to lead Quinn Maritime, though he delegated more to spend time with his family. Adeline maintained her jewelry shop, now expanded to include apprentices she was training in her craft. On quiet evenings, they often sat on their deck, watching the ships move in and out of the harbor while Emma slept peacefully inside. Oliver would hold Adeline's hand, feeling the smooth wooden band of her wedding ring against his palm, grateful for the anniversary panic that had led him to her shop and changed his life forever. "You ever think about how differently things might have turned out?" he asked her one such evening. "If I hadn't forgotten that anniversary gift," Adeline smiled, the same smile that had captivated him from the beginning. "I think we would have found each other eventually," she said confidently. "Some things are just meant to be crafted together." Oliver couldn't help but agree. Like the finest piece of jewelry, their love had been unexpected, carefully crafted, and designed to last a lifetime.